When we talk about creating a life by design, for example, often we see people, and I know that I'm guilty of this as well, is that you go to this physical, environment that you're trying to create. So it takes money, and it takes, you want a beautiful home, and you want all the things you want. You want all the stuff. And when we think about creating a life by design, it's easy to step over, well, what else could that mean besides stuff? We're at a point in our life where stuff really isn't our thing. It's really about creating an amazing environment, but it's also about how are we feeling about our life. And we have to understand that we take responsibility for that. So creating a life by design for me has also morphed into how are we feeling about the life that we have, the relationships that we have, the sense of, I guess, accomplishment and or the sense of joy or happiness overall. And it's been a tough year, for both of us, I think, in that regards. I don't know. Sometimes I wonder, with all that we've dealt with this year, if we didn't have the tools and the skills that we have, I think sometimes we would have just totally melted down. And, the thing about that is when you start to have these tools, when you start to look at life through a different lens, a lot of things can come at you. And it's kind of like the Matrix, when he, in that last scene, when he looks down the hallway and, everybody just turns into zeros and ones, and he just kind of, takes all the bad guys and, blows them out the door, or whatever that last scene was. It was because of how he viewed the world. He really was just understanding that how he saw it. And I don't want to pretend I know the concept of Matrix inside out, but the point is that that's what shifted for him. It was the shift of how he saw himself. And then that changed how he saw, in this case, the bad guys. But the point is that with all that was going on, the change was with him. And I think it's just a good kind of, maybe it's not a metaphor for, how we have to look at life. And for anybody, I think that when we look at the emotionality behind things, it's what really can fuck up our day, our week, our month, our life. If there's blame, if there's complain, if there's victim, if this shit is always happening to me, why is it always bad luck? It's the case of, I always remember somebody who worked for me who once sat down and she goes, my dad always told me if it wasn't for bad luck, I wouldn't have any luck at all.
Oh,
And I'm
wow.
going, oh boy, did
What a
you ever
message.
take that? Did you ever take that on? Because this girl was, every day was a drama. I had to let her go. I
Wow.
just couldn't deal with the dramas that she dealt with. But then when she shared that with me, I had so much more empathy and understanding for her thought process. Her dad literally said that to her. She, was a young lady. She, he basically said, young lady, if it wasn't for bad luck, you wouldn't have any luck at all, it seems.
Wow, when you think about the influences that we have when we say things like that, even if it's tongue in cheek, that's really sad.
I know. Anyways, we carry on. So the point is that how we see the world is incredibly important. The change we need to see is within myself, as Rumi says. And when we expand on that, we start to understand and see the world differently.
What's the Wayne Dyer quote that you used to like hammer me with all the time about the way that you look at things?
When we change the way we look at things, the things
The
we
things
look
we
at
look at
change.
change. Say it again.
When we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change.
Yeah, so this podcast has been all about these amazing quotes about shifting and changing. It's not like it's a new concept, from Wayne Dyer to Rumi all the way back to, the beginning of time, is that human beings, I think we're driven to grow. And in order to grow, we need to understand. Did you know that's the lobster story? Do you know how
I,
lobsters grow?
remind me.
Okay,
I do.
lobsters are like really like fleshy and soft, and we think of them as hard in their little shells, right? They're not. They're soft, and then they grow into their shell, and then they are so uncomfortable that they go and they lodge themselves under a rock lobster, until they can break out of that shell and it cracks open, and then they're soft and vulnerable again. That's why they don't want to change, is because they're vulnerable again. But then the shell starts to grow around them, and it restricts their growth again, and they get super uncomfortable. So as this goes over time, that is like kind of how I feel sometimes, is that this restricting, and it's painful, and I know I have to grow. I know I have to pop whatever shell or image or thought process, because it's so uncomfortable that I've gotten used to that uncomfortable thing, meaning the more uncomfortable it is, the more important it is that I have to shift and grow into my what's next, because I love that lobster story.
Well, it's a great point, and we hammer that one, some version of that often, which is to say that there is no growth in status quo. You have to get uncomfortable. There is, that's universal law. You're going to build an empire. You're going to build something. You're going to change in some way. It's going to get tested. It's actually going to get tested and say, okay, are you serious about this? Okay, well, here, let me just throw a little test at you and just see how profound you are. Let's see how zen like you are. Let me throw a little drama at you and see how you react. In this case of this drama, you think you're so zen like. These are things that often happen. You build a great business, it gets tested. You have a relationship with people, even significant other, it gets tested. And it really is universal law. But the reason it gets tested goes back to that foundational. It is survival of the fittest. And the fittest means that when you get tested, you step up, you grow, you get stronger from that particular test. And that is such an important concept to understand. And I would encourage anybody to reflect on your life and just think about the times that you have grown. Always before the growth came something. It came a stretch. It came something, a drama. It came something. Something showed up that you had to work through. You had to push yourself. You had to grind it out and figure it out. And that's where the growth lives, is in those tests. Like going to the gym, you want to get stronger. Add an extra plate to that bar. That tests you. And that's where the strength and the growth lives, is in those tests and in those challenges that we have to face. And if we look at that and embrace it, it's not, well, let's face it, it's not for everybody. A lot of people are just okay, and that's fine. I don't think many of them are listening to this podcast, but the reality is there's just some people that we look at them and you go, gosh, you're just in the TikTok of the world, and you don't understand it. We don't understand it, because we're driven to always be in a growth mode, and sometimes we go, okay, we need to just chill out.
Yeah, we need to step back for a
Yeah.
second, reevaluate, take a look at the terrain, make sure we're still going in the right direction. But, I can't tell you one single athlete that said to me, I want to be an Olympic champion, that hasn't had a massive test to the
Mm,
point where they want to quit.
mm,
And sometimes I have to take them through an exercise called permission to quit in order for them to feel what it would be like if they gave up on themselves and gave up on their goals.
mm.
And I truly believe not one of the champion athletes that I've worked with has had it easy. It looks like it when they're on top of the podium, or when people sign the big deal or the big record deal or whatever. It looks all beautiful and rosy for one moment. But the truth is they have had to overcome a lot and embrace a lot of adversity on the way. And that, to me, that's the test. If you can see the adversity, oh, look at there's some adversity. What am I going to have to do? Do I have to clean up an incompletion? Do I have to have a conversation with somebody? Do I have to slow down? Do I maybe have to do a rest and recovery day? What do I have to do in order to move through this? And many times what I find is that it's a conversation, or it's a belief system that they have to bust in order to go to the next level. And I think that could be a whole other podcast around belief systems.
Well, it is interesting. It's like you can't go into chapters, you can't go on Kindle and see a whole section called "How to Be Amazing at Mediocrity."
There's not
Um,
one? Really?
there isn't a section about that. What happens is we start to realize that we're being mediocre, or we are living a mediocre life, and we want to do more, be more. We want to show up differently. We want to actually be the change we want to see in the world. Hence, we listen to these podcasts. Hence, we get coaching. And how do we get better? We hire that coach that takes us to the gym. We hire that personal development coach. We register for Shift. Hopefully, people
Exactly.
will register for Shift. We're here. We're now.